So let's go ahead and get started today. We're doing a pop quiz breakdown. They had a quiz today over graphing in slope-intercept form or in standard form. We have notes on both of these. This is our 3.6 and this is our 3.5. So if they weren't here, what they did was I had them partner up into where they had a partner, and one of them did odds, one of them did evens, and then they turned them in separately. About halfway through class, I had them swap partners, so maybe if they didn't get the most helpful partner, if their partner was missing notes, or just whatever the reason, they did get a second partner where they could then communicate with that partner, use their notes, and if not, beneath every student's desk was, let me slide this out from beneath this one, their textbook. And they had open textbook as well. So if they swapped over to 3.5 and 3.6, boop, boop, we have graphing in standard form. They could use this and it'll walk them through exactly what's going on. So they could use their notes, they could use their partner's notes, they could use their textbook, and then they also got a new partner halfway through the activity. Some of them also realized that this was still very difficult and they still don't know what's going on. Hopefully with enough review, if they didn't do well today, I would really strongly recommend mom, dad, parents, guardians, have them come to tutoring, because at this point, these are sections that they've covered for the past few years. These are not new topics. If they're still really struggling with this, we need one-on-one time. This is not going to be something that we can catch up as a class. They're going to need some one-on-one help. But let's walk through to make sure that we understand what's going on for those of you who struggled today. First off, I had them take their paper and we folded it in half hot dog style, so they got a nice and long right there. Then what they did was they folded it into thirds. So we've got, there we go, that's a third. And then here's another third. Boom. And so what that gave them was that gave them 6 graphs right here on the front, 6 graphs on the back, so that they could graph these questions. Now, the first 6 questions, regardless if they did odds or evens, were in slope-intercept form. So 1 through 12 are already in slope-intercept form. You can see some of them are even horizontal or vertical lines. When the variable, there's only one variable, that's either a horizontal or a vertical line. So if they did something like number 1, let's go ahead and give ourselves a nice graph. Something like that, something like this. I have our y and our x. This graph has a starting point at -1, so they put a point right here. And the slope is 1/4, which means it goes up 1 over 4. And there's their second point. Dropped that. They connect those points with a line. And that's everything. That's all I required for this, was that they do that. If they went ahead and labeled this as 0, -1, and this one is at 4, 0, that's awesome. That wasn't required in order to get credit. But that's all these were. So like for this one on number 3, if they did that one, this one doesn't have a coefficient in front of the x, but still, there's an invisible coefficient that most of them, if you ask them, what's the number in front of any variable? It's a 1. So what we know here is that I have a starting point at +1, and I have a slope of 1 over 1. So I go up 1 over 1 from that point, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. You can do this as many times as you want. If they didn't have a ruler, they could do it as many times. However, if they do have a ruler, all they really need is those 2 points, and they can connect them with a straight line. Again, that's all that was required. They needed to show me that they pop that point, and I can see that they're counting their slope. If they went ahead and listed this, that's awesome. This was not required. So if they got something like this one, like number 6 or number 9 or number 8, when there's a single variable, those are horizontal or vertical lines. So like let's look at number 6. Number 6 is y equals 4. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where my y value is equal to 4. And then the next question is, okay, where else does y equal 4? Well, anywhere up here are all values of y equaling 4. The x changes, but the y is constant. So this is a horizontal line. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, That's all that was required. They don't need to label anything. If they did label this as 0, 4, that's awesome. That wasn't required to get credit. So those were all the first 6, was just going over that. You can see they didn't take too long. They've covered this over the past several years. Some of them still really need maybe some one-on-one, or maybe you need to stop and slow down. Again, this is something that you might want to sit down and have a conversation with them, because we've also done it together as a class. The next 12 questions, these are all in standard form. Now, standard form, we covered both ways that we could do this. You can either use the 2 intercepts, or we can use it in slope-intercept form. This is predominantly the way that's going to be the easiest. The conversion, they're still experiencing a little problems with that, but that's fine. We're working on that as a class. They can do this though. Some of them like to do this and they know how, but all of them know how to do this, because this is generally how this is introduced. So let's start with the first standard form one. So remember, pause. Okay, sorry about that. There was a announcement call because I'm doing this during my lunch right now. These are all standard form. These were all done just like all of those. So with these guys, let's look at number 13 first. I'm actually going to write it out. Negative 2x plus y equals negative 3. The way that we solved these was, let's zoom in a little bit, was we had to find the x and the y intercept. So I would plug in a 0 for the x and solve. There's one intercept. And then I would plug a 0 in for the y and solve. Okay, bingo. So I have my x-intercept and my y-intercept. So you just plug in a 0 for the first variable and then for the second variable, and you get your 2 points. Now, what does that mean? That means on our graph, okay, I have x and I have y. I have a y-intercept at 3, and I have an x-intercept at 3/2, which is roughly 1.5. Bingo. And I have my 2 points. I connect those with a straight line. Okay, that's the way that everybody in class has been exposed to it. This is typically how the section is introduced. If you want to see another one, let's look at number 14. So number 14 is right there. 3x plus y equals 2. And all we do on these is I plug in a 0 for the x on the first go. So 3 times 0 plus y equals 2. And then I plug in a 0 for the other variable on the second go. So 3x plus 0 for the y equals 2. Solve y equals 2. Super easy to do. This one a little bit more work, but no worries. Divide both sides by 3, and I get x equals 2/3. Boom. So I've got my 2 intercepts. Again, shloop, shloop. X, y. Y-intercept at 2. X is at 2/3, so it's roughly right there. And again, they don't need to label it as long as I can count their boxes. If they did go ahead and say this is 0, 2, and this is 2/3, comma 0, awesome. They didn't need to label those things. Lastly, there's a different way that you could do them. If you notice the first few, the y doesn't have a coefficient on there. That's because I said, hey, for the first few, if you want to do the other method, you can. Let's do number 15. Let's do that the other way. So this is the other method. Some of them are okay with this. Some of them are not. We've covered it once or twice, but not too terribly often. And so how do we do this? Well, I want to put it into y equals mx plus b format, which means the y needs to be the only thing on the left side of the equation. So I need to get rid of this 1/2 x. So I'm going to add 1/2 x to both sides, plus 1/2 x. That's going to cancel it over here. I now have y equals 1/2 x minus 5. This equation is just like what we did on the first half, where it's in slope-intercept form. I have my intercept and I have my slope. So if I graph this, let's put this a little higher up, give me some more room on the bottom. Y and x. My intercept is at -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my slope is up 1/2. Now I can do as many up 1/2s as I want, but I only really need the 1. because at that point, I have my equation. Bingo. So as you can see, we had some slope-intercept, we had some standard form. Whichever way they did it, it was a total of 12 questions. They had the entire period. They swapped partners. It was open note, open book, and open partners notes. So pay attention to that because that is something that we'll be using in the future. Take care and have a good weekend.